Coming into the 2025 season, there is a mixed bag of opinions on the Houston Texans and what they could be this year. Question marks on quarterback CJ Stroud after a down 2024 season. What is the offensive line, and can they compete in the AFC with the top teams? I know, another video talking about the Texans this week. What could I say? I think they're the most slept on team in the NFL. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking to you about the Texans and why I think that they can be such a difference-making team this year. And this video is going to be broken down into three parts. Part one, false narratives. Part two, the improvements that the team made, and part three, the 2025 expectations. If you love the NFL and you're not yet subscribed to this YouTube channel, I would highly suggest you hit that button for team videos like this, predictions, instant game reactions, breaking news reactions, tier lists, you name it. This can be your central hub for all NFL content from just a regular guy like you talking ball. Now let's talk about the Houston Texans. So like I mentioned, the first part of this video is going to be kind of debunking some false narratives about the 2024 Texans and some things that are being held against them for the 2025 season. And if you watched my AFC South predictions video, you're going to kind of know this narrative, but if not, follow along. The people around the media scape, whether it's all the way from guys on ESPN and FS1 to even smaller channels like me, are talking about the Houston Texans this offseason as if the sky is falling on this team. And I would counteract with the sky already fell on the team last season. When you look back to the 2024 season for the Houston Texans, they had an offensive line full of issues that never really played to a high level. Injuries at premier positions for premier players: Nico Collins, Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, Will Anderson Jr., Jalen Petrie, all premier players on this Houston Texans team that were injured at different points throughout the season. And for the cases of Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell, they were season-ending injuries. Even Jalen Petrie missed a ton of time for that team. They were missing some of their best players. The offensive line wasn't playing at a high level. Bobby Slowick, their offensive coordinator, may be most to blame for the failures in 2024, as it was a little too late when he finally decided to start adapting and maybe making changes to the offense, and I think it's truly what cost him his job. CJ Stroud, obviously, statistically, had a down year. Yet, all of that included, the Houston Texans won 10 games, won the AFC South, which I get it, it's the AFC South, but they still won it. And if you had any, it's the AFC South, they won a playoff game in dominant fashion over the Los Angeles Chargers, who aren't a slouch team. All of that when the sky already fell. Yet, I'm supposed to believe that the Houston Texans are going to be worse in 2025 because they've had an offseason to make adjustments. And we'll talk about those adjustments just in a little bit here. But I'm not following the A to B to C point. Point A, 2024 was a disaster. Point B, the Houston Texans have had time to make adjustments and did so. Point C, they're going to be worse in 2025. I don't believe that the AFC South is a team that can compete with them, truthfully. And I think that they did make enough moves to be better in 2025. And the second false narrative is CJ Stroud. The sophomore slump is a term that I think we throw around a little too candidly when trying to diss quarterbacks. There's plenty of players, teams, etc., that progression is not linear for. In the NFL, it is not, you start off as a non-playoff team. You make the playoffs, you lose in the wild card round. Then you lose in the divisional, then conference championship, yada yada, all the way to winning a Super Bowl. There are ups and downs, and it is going to be that way for players as well. 2023 was obviously an extravagant rookie season for CJ Stroud, and at the time, called by many the greatest rookie season of all time. Coming off of that, he had a down statistical year in 2024. But is that because CJ Stroud himself got worse, or the things around him did? Bobby Slowick became a worse offensive coordinator who wasn't adapting. His weapons were injured often and not really out there at the same time together. The offensive line performed worse. Harder schedule. You just won the division. Did CJ Stroud himself get worse, or was his environment not as good? That's what I would ask you. I lean a little bit on the environment, And yeah, I think he pressed a little bit, and that's why we saw such high interception numbers. But if you truly believe that at 23 years old, CJ Stroud has regressed and isn't going to be good, I think you have another thing coming your way. Let's move on to part 2 of this video, the improvements made. And I mentioned this at the top of the false narratives situation. The team has moved on from Bobby Slowick. And in general, I would say that that's an upgrade no matter who they brought in. That's why Bobby Slowick wasn't signed to a new team. But they brought in Nick Caley, an offensive mind underneath Sean McVay, and in that Sean McVay tree. And I believe that Nick Caley is going to come into this Houston Texans organization and get the most out of this offense. We've seen Sean McVay year after year, regardless of the talent he had around him, whether or not Matt Stafford was healthy or injured, what the offensive line looked at going through changes, get the best out of his units and the best out of his offense. And I believe Nick Caley will be able to bring over that adaptable trait from the Sean McVay tree. Is he going to be Sean McVay? Listen, it'd be crazy to make that suggestion. But again, a guy who has traits of Sean McVay is likely to be better than Bobby Slowick. And what he's going to bring to this team is better offensive line run schemes to better suggest work with the talent, or maybe even lack thereof talent that they have, but size that they have on the offensive line, to open up more rushing lanes for Joe Mixon to make him a more efficient runner, but also get the best out of CJ Stroud. Obviously, we've seen Sean McVay get the best out of quarterbacks under him, whether it's Jared Goff getting to a Super Bowl, Matthew Stafford winning a Super Bowl, or Baker Mayfield coming in on a week's notice and winning a Thursday night football game in the NFL with barely knowing the playbook. Point being, offensive coordinators from the McVay tree tend to get the most out of their players. I expect Nick Caley to do the same. But he also has a lot of good players to work with. The Texans made improvements. We talked about Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell getting injured and out for the season. Now this team has brought in Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel out of Iowa State, who I think is a very good wide receiver duo to add to any NFL team. You have Higgins, who I think is a big body on the outside, could be very efficient. Jalen Noel, a speed slot guy who is very much so a vertical threat, but a yak guy as well. You brought in Christian Kirk, who as your wide receiver 4, I think is a very useful, and you added pieces to this offensive line. And I'm not going to sit here and bullshit you guys and say that the Texans offensive line is going to be this amazing unit in 2025. I have my doubts, but they added in Ariante Ursery, Trent Brown, Cam Robinson, Ed Ingram, Lakeland Tomlinson, and added that to Jake Andrews, Titus Howard, and Blake Fisher. They get about 8 bodies there that they're willing to move around the offensive line to get the best unit with. And what is it that Albert Einstein says? Insanity is repeating the same thing but expecting different results. If the Houston Texans had really just thrown out the same offensive line as last year, but said, hey, we got a new offensive coordinator, things are going to change, would that have been a little insane? I don't know if the new guys are going to work out, but shit, putting a new unit out there can't be worse. You sucked last year. If it sucks this year, at least you got better weapons and a better offensive mind to work with. And they even added guys to the defense, which was a top tier unit last year, but now it's top 5 consensusly, at least should be, in my opinion. CJ Gardner-Johnson, one of the better safeties in the game. You add him to a safety trio now of Jalen Petrie and Kalen Bullock, and Sheldon Rankins back on the defensive line. You pair him alongside Will Anderson again, who they have experience together. He's a run stuffer, and you have a top 5 defensive unit. The Houston Texans and Nick Caserio saw that the team needed improvements and made them. So now for part 3 of the video, we look ahead to 2025 and think about what will the Houston Texans be. I think for starters, the defense will be the strength of this team. It was the strength of the team last year, and it'll be the strength of the team this year, and they could contend for the best defense in all of the NFL. They have the best pass rusher duo in football statistically, and also on the eye test, in Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. And like I mentioned, you bring Sheldon Rankins back to that defensive line, it's a good unit. A solid linebacking core. Azeez Al-Shaair, Oto, Christian Harris, it's solid. And then you look to the secondary, and I think it truthfully could be the best in football. We mentioned the safety trio of CJ Gardner-Johnson, Jalen Petrie, and Kalen Bullock. They could combined force 20 turnovers this year, and I'm not exaggerating. And then the cornerback duo, Derek Stingley Jr., the second best corner in football, and Kamari Lassiter, a rookie who absolutely balled out and looks to improve in his sophomore season. That duo allowed the lowest passer rating of any cornerback duo in football last year. And those guys could be only getting better under defensive-minded head coach DeMeco Ryans. Have no doubts, Houston will be a defensive-first team. But that doesn't mean that the offense can't be better. Because even with the question marks around the offensive line. And if you want to say going from Diggs and a healthy Tank Dell to Higgins, Noel, and Kirk is a lateral move in terms of talent, there's no doubt in my mind that they'll be a more efficient unit under Nick Haley and have a real identity. And they will adapt and go to what works. Nick Haley, his offensive style, does put a lot on the IQ of CJ Stroud. But we've seen in multiple times and in big spots, when CJ Stroud needs to play well, he can. We saw it in the playoff game versus the Chargers. We saw it a ton in his rookie season. Last year, he went head-to-head with Josh Allen in Week 5 and outplayed him and won that football game. So let's not pretend we haven't seen flashes of CJ Stroud being excellent. You pair him now with what could be one of the premier offensive coordinators in football, this team will improve. All in all, where does that go for this team in the 2025 season? I think for sure they have to be favored to win the AFC South. I personally, in my predictions, have them winning it by 4 games at 11-6. I think they certainly could be a top 3 seed in the AFC and maybe even top 2 and host multiple playoff games. When it comes to 2025, I don't put it past Houston finally getting to a conference championship and going head to head with one of Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, or Lamar Jackson in winning that game with a strong defense and a more versatile offense. Do I think we're fully ready for this team to be a Super Bowl team? I think the offense may need another year to catch up in another draft. But ultimately, Houston is still on the right track, and them being disrespected as if they aren't isn't something that I understand, nor would I want to. The Houston Texans are a good football team, a great organization, and a team that will be around for a while. You talk about the big 3 teams of the AFC, the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Bills. But consistently over the last 2 years, the final 4 teams have also included the Houston Texans. I think in this year they could step up and really challenge one of those top 3 teams. But of course, as always, guys, these are just my thoughts. Be sure to leave yours in the comment section down below. What do you expect from the Houston Texans in 2025? Let me know if you like these team breakdown style videos, and if you're not yet subscribed to the channel, but you liked what you saw here. And again, instant news reactions, game reactions, tier list, prediction videos, you name it, it is here on the channel. Hit that subscribe button if you love the NFL. I'll catch you next time. Peace.